What's good, YouTube? It's me, your boy Squiddy, again with another video. This time a deck profile. A lot of people have been asking about an updated Sky Striker recipe, so here it is. I didn't make too many tweaks. Again, this deck is still going second, but I did add some key cards that I think are really, really powerful in this Master Duel current format. So yeah, to start off, obviously 3 Veiler, 3 Maxi, 3 Ash for the hand trap lineup. Veiler, it's not as good. I think it could definitely experiment with other cards, but I think obviously Maxi and Ash are like, you can't even negotiate. These have to be in here just because, especially going second, like these cards are just so impactful. Obviously Ash can also stop things like Maxi, which is super crucial. And I actually played 2 Ghost Spell and Haunted Match, and this card is actually just nuts. A lot of people don't realize how good this card is, and I think a lot of people are just ignoring this card because of the fact that it's ultra rare and it's really expensive in this game. But no, this card is insane. I have to make a separate video to like explain what this does, but it hits so many cards. It hits Called by the Grave, first of all. It hits any card that banishes, any card that like interacts with the graveyard, it essentially hits. So it hits Called by the Grave. It hits Monster Reborn, you know, Tri-Brigade Revolt, huge. It hits against Eldritch, Sanguine, the trap that summons stuff. It also does from grave. Ice Dragon's Prison, which is really good, so it can be used offensively and defensively. Against birds, it stops like Lyrilisk, Berry Canary. Against a mirror match, it starts Ray and Kagari. Because it negates the activation, it can actually stop Ray effect in the damage step. So if you like swing over something and they activate Ray, you can actually Ghost Spell that. Also, it stops, you know, niche things like Pot of Avarice if anyone plays that. DD Crow as well, in addition to Called by the Grave. So if someone's trying to decray your row, you can protect it. DD Crow your Ray, you can protect it with Bell. Nadir Servant, obviously it's at 1, but I mean, it still can come up. Any Drytron name that activates in the graveyard, it can stop. Also against Virtual Worlds, it can stop Lalo and Gigi, because they both interact with the grave in some capacity. Stops Invocation when they don't have the Magical Meltdown, because Magical Meltdown prevents like your opponents from negating their summons, so you can't actually do it when they have Meltdown, but when they don't have Meltdown, you can do it. Against Schism, you can chain. When they flip Schism, only when they flip it, obviously. You can't do it against something that's already face up because that doesn't count as an activated card. It's like more of an effect. So this can only work against the, or you know what? I lied. Actually, this does work against Schism. That's already face up, I think, right? Because when a card is effect activated. Against, yeah, it does work against already face up Schism, but the thing is, it negates that activation, but the card still stays on the table. So if they have it face down and they flip it up and you chain Ghost Spell, it negates the activation because it was already face down and not face up at the time. It would actually be sent to the graveyard. But if it's already face up on the field and they're using it, then it stays on the field. So if you're a Shaddoll player, definitely flip up Schism and then use the effect if you can to play around Ghost Spell, I guess. And against Prankets, it stops the bird and the dog. So against when they make the Cock-a-doodle-doo and they tribute it to add 2 and you Ghost Spell, a lot of times that's just like huge because they lose the resources to make their Battle Butler. And like they essentially like almost like neg 2 because they're just like down 2 cards that they banked on, and they made their entire play banking on the fact that could add them back and just got like punished by the Ghost Spell. So it's really good. Monster lineup, obviously 3 Ray, 1 Rose. I think this is good. They have Maxi and cards to draw into this card. I actually ended up playing 2 Field Spell as well because I think having a Field Spell is better than a second copy of Rose, just because like summoning Rose is not great. You just want to see Ray as quickly as possible because it's a quick effect. Dodges interruptions and also the resurrection effect in grave. Still 2 Nib. I think like maybe you could even cut it to 1 just because it's best of 1 format, but it's a catch-all. It's good against combo decks, and like Maxi has something to draw into. Otherwise, they can like full combo and you don't have anything to draw into and you can still lose. So having a Nib as like a way to end their entire board is super important, I think. 1 Reinforcement, Terraforming, really good. 3 Desires. This card, I think you have to play 3. It's almost like, I want to say like one of the best cards, like probably top 3 cards in the deck, just because like I would rather see this card opening in hand than engage, because I'd rather draw 2 than like draw 1. Right, so it's actually crazy. This card's just like a +1, and you definitely have to play it. Doesn't really matter what you banish, as long as you can have Sky Striker cards. Even if you banish 2 engage, like you're still drawing cards, which is really important, especially going second. Like the theory for this deck is you obviously open like ideally 2 or more hand traps in Array or like a pot, and you just like whittle down the resources, and then you activate like Pot of Desires and draw Array, and you win. 2 engage, 2 Afterburners still. Maybe you can cut it to 1, but I just like 2 just because banishing 1 really sucks against the trap decks in best of 1, like Eldritch. So just having 2, I think, is important. 2 Field Spell, it's kind of weird. Usually in the TCG, you only play 1, but in this, I've been playing 2 just because, like, I feel like I brick a lot. Like in this deck, a lot of times it's just like all hand traps or like no Ray, and you just want to see it as soon as possible. And I feel like the fact that there's 3 multi-roll in this format gives you more reason to want to draw the area 0 so you can actually summon Ray, as opposed to in the TCG, it's just like 1 multi-roll. So like having multiple airspace, you're just like bricking by drawing 2 copies. 3 multi-roll, this card's also super, super important. You have to play 3 just because it starts off a lot of your plays. It makes it so your opponent cannot ash like your pots and your engages, which is really, really good. A lot of times in the like going first, I just take the neg 1 just to play around ash if my pot or like engage has to resolve in order for me to win by getting Ray. It's just better to play safer that way, you know. Whereas an ash can just end your entire turn and just make you lose on the spot. 2 cosmic, same kind of reason with this, best of 1, you know, against like Eldritch. If it was best of 3, then I probably wouldn't main that cosmic, just because like you have a lot of built-in stuff that takes care of traps, and then game 2 and 3 you can just side in trap hate for like Steel Drain and stuff like that. Hornet Drones, 2 Widows, self-explanatory. 1 Shark. I was playing 2, but I cut it to 1. I was thinking like, yeah, maybe like, I think 1's okay. Like in this deck, you have double engage and you have ways to like search like multi-row and reset the Shark Cannon. There could be like, you could play 2. Obviously, when the Phoenix Enforcer stuff comes out, then definitely play 2, I think. But for now, I think 1's okay. And I replaced the Chalice with Droplets because I think Droplet, I wanted to try this card. I feel like it's a lot better against cards that can't be targeted. So like the Simorg, like all that bird stuff, it's really hard for this deck to deal with. And then Droplet also deals with like cards like the Herald of Perfection and so on and so forth. I don't know if this card is that good, because a lot of times I feel like having to discard or send is harder than you would think, because you think that you'd have all these chainables so you can play pot, chain, droplet or something, but in actuality, like this card is just a lot worse when you're grinding or when you're going first for whatever reason and you set it, whereas Chalice can be used as 1-for-1. So I don't know if I want to go back to Chalice on this. I still have to kind of experiment. If you guys have any thoughts, let me know on that, because yeah, definitely relevant there. Imperm, obviously, self-explanatory, same thing with Veiler. I think Imperm's really, really good. Obviously, Veiler in this deck is a spellcaster, so you can do the Howl combo, so I think you'd have to play at least 1, but I think Imperm's, in theory, like generally a better card, just because you can use it if you draw it as your 6th card going second, and you can use it on something like a VFD or whatever. Extra deck, self-explanatory, 3 of everything. 3 Hayate, 3 Shiz, 1 Kagari, 1 Relinquish. This card is this like never comes up, so you probably just cut it for a Unicorn. I might just do that. The other card is that Hida, the Flame Girl. I don't think she's that good, because when you only have 1 Kagari number 1, and also like the biggest target for that card is Ash against all the mashups. But if they have Ash, like if you have Shark Cannon, it's already able to make Hulk. So the only time this is good is when you don't have Shark Cannon, they have Ash Engrave, and you haven't used your Kagari, and you're trying to push for like to make the access code. So I don't think that card is that good, as opposed to having Kagari at 3. Kinda obviously burn, gain a bunch of life, so on and so forth. It's really good for the daily quest, by the way. If you guys are thinking about ways to gain life points, just play this card. Hulk for the Hulk combo. Phoenix, this card is really, really good. It also like helps you recover, so you don't get punished by your misplays. Sometimes I misplay and I'm like, I used my multi-roll on my field spell and I Widow Anchor something and it's on my board and I have no way to get rid of it, and I'm like, oh crap. So I can just link away into Phoenix, which is kind of funny. Also gets rid of like Imperial Order, which is super relevant. Zeke, 1 Zeke's okay. Ningirsu, again, this one's really, really good. Non-targeting removal. You can see in some of my replays, I actually bring this out to deal with cards that can be targeted, like Mech Knight Crusader Avermax and Simorglink. This card is really good. It doesn't target send. Also, you can do cool things like send the field spell and then summon a Ray, and then you can make access code because this is a rank 3. So yeah, super, super good card. Definitely would play it. And then obviously Selene and access code. This card, you have to play this in this deck, I think, because there's no other way to kill your opponent. Like literally, you cannot give your opponent turns. Like in this meta, you have to control the game, but you have to end the game like as soon as possible. A lot of decks have like grind game, and when they take like 2 extra turns to like replenish their resources, you start losing because you're out of like your own resources. Like all your engages are gone, your widows are gone, and it's really hard. So obviously you want to kill them as fast as possible. And yeah, that's about it. If you guys have any other suggestions for the deck, definitely let me know. I'm going to play around with it some more. I think the deck is still really, really good. Definitely good enough to beat the tier 1 decks, and I think it's definitely up there that it could win a tournament. I feel like a lot of people are not playing this deck just because it's like they feel like it's weaker than it is, but it's actually, I think it's really, really good. Just as good, if not better than the TCG variant. And yeah, I think, you know, definitely it's not an easy deck. There are a lot of like different lines that you have to think about from playing over and over and over. So definitely try to play as much as you can and think of different moves. Think about what cards you can use, all the cards in your deck. Use spreadsheets and stuff like that. And yeah, that's about it. If you guys have any suggestions, let me know. Otherwise, subscribe, like, and comment, and I'll be out with more videos. Ciao.